The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year. Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
I like what you guys have done with the place.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
I like the candle that you guys have lit.
Yeah.
Like, that smell is just fantastic. I mean, there's cookies in here. I haven't even dove into the cookies.
It's the holiday season.
Yeah, absolutely. 'Tis the season. Welcome in Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. Today, a lot to get into, of course. We'll have Elliot's headlines coming up here shortly. Juan Soto, they put out the list of the final teams that he could potentially end up with. And I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this, because if he ends up doing what Kevin Durant did in the NBA, they got him absolutely torched. I'm curious why the double standard when it comes to that in Major League Baseball. We'll get to that later on in the show. Zach Taylor addressed the media yesterday. The message he has for the team, coming out of the bye week, preparing for the Steelers, of course. And then former Ohio State Buckeye Keith Byars is going to join us to talk about the game, the rivalry. Ohio State, Michigan coming up on Saturday. We'll talk about that with Keith Byars coming up here shortly. So have you guys seen the hit that he put on? So his best friend is Pepper Johnson, former Buckeye.
Okay.
And I forgot. So KB was a running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, going up against the Giants, and Pepper Johnson running. That's his best friend. It was one of the hardest hits I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, literally just laid this dude out. I would hate to see what he would do to a guy that was not his friend, but it was one of the biggest hits I'd ever seen. But obviously, this is a guy that 13 years in the NFL, former Pro Bowl running back, was the runner-up to the Heisman during his time at Ohio State. We'll talk about that with him coming up here shortly.
Runner-up.
When we were the runner-up, when we were doing the show, we were doing our pregame for Ohio State this past weekend, and it was awkward because we're sitting there talking, and then we look up, and it was the whole presentation of Doug Flutie's Heisman back in the day. So I was like, that's not awkward, Keith.
Yeah,
I don't know.
If Doug Flutie wouldn't have pulled out a brand new play, Keith Byars would have been the Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah. He does, every time he sees Flutie, he does say, "You keeping my trophy warm." I was
That's great.
I always ask, what's Flutie's reaction? It's an awkward laugh, is what he says.
Nothing else you can do.
It's not awkward for Keith. So, there you go. But we'll get to Keith coming up here in just a little bit. But Elliot, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. It's a spectacular day to be alive.
Is
It's
it?
almost Thanksgiving, yeah. Are
you
you getting all your Amazon deals done now? You getting ready? You looking at everything for
Are
Black
you a
Friday?
Christmas shopper on Black Friday?
Well, a lot of my family is. I personally am not. I'm
a Christmas shopper on like the
23rd. Yeah, that's right.
It
where
just
I am,
means
too.
more. It's like the
It
SEC.
does, yeah. I do better with my back
Yeah.
against the wall.
Correct.
Pressure-
So that's
pressure
when
scenario.
you'll see me. But a lot of people get it going on this Friday.
I like to go to the store physically to buy stuff. I don't know why, because I hate people. I hate traffic. But I do.
Yeah,
Around the holidays, I thoroughly enjoy going to the stores and like walking around. I hate when people tell me what to get them. I feel like that takes the surprise element out of it a little bit. Like my wife's family does that, where they're like, "Hey, tell us what you want for Christmas."
Yeah.
And I'm like, but then you tell me that you got me that. I don't know. I don't like that. Just
That's
surprise
fair.
me. I like surprising people. I like not having a plan. I'll go to the store. I'll go walk around the mall. I'll come up with plans that way. But no, I'm not an Amazon guy. I don't like to just order stuff.
I'm an Amazon guy.
I
but
order basically everything but clothes. I like to try clothes.
You like to try clothes on, that's fair.
But if I have like one that I know the size, then I'll just reload online.
Yeah.
If I get something I like, I just get 10 of them. That's usually how I operate.
That's how I operate as well. Casey, you're definitely an Amazon guy.
Yeah, I'm a bit of an Amazon guy. I do a lot of my shopping like the 23rd, just like Jacob. I do a lot of my good work when my back's up against the wall.
That's good men right there.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So where do you get all the Chatterbox apparel that we never get to have access
it's
to? Like
wonderful.
that's another new one,
It's a
by the way. I
great
forgot to
question.
comment on the new Chatterbox apparel earlier in the week. That's a Nike one.
It's so good. It's so good. Him and Reed pull out just wonderful Chatterbox merch. I wish I worked at the company.
Yeah. I mean, this one's a classic. This one is a limited edition. You had to be here like 3 years ago to get this one.
Oh wow.
It's new old.
It's new what?
It's new old?
New old, yeah. If you guys want to make your own Chatterbox merch, we've got those stamps that we can get you all set up with.
Maybe I will.
But I don't want to take my sweatshirts and just put Chatterbox the sticker on it. Like I have.
I want you to give me.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't want to actually have to do that.
Well, that's what they did with these.
Well,
that's-
they did it. You didn't do it. You understand the difference here?
But Reed, I'm pretty sure Reed did this.
Well, Reed, if you're listening, feel free.
Rumor has it that when I signed my contract extension, you hear that? You know,
Oh,
guys in the
no.
chat, when I signed
They're
my
not gonna be happy
contract
about that
extension,
news.
rumor has it that there is some Chatterbox apparel waiting for me when I signed
big
my,
time.
Really?
my extension. They didn't want to waste apparel on me because, you know, the hosts just keep dipping.
Could have been fired.
And they could have been fired.
You've done such a great job.
You know, but by the way, the Browns are bringing Kevin Stefanski back, so you guys might
There
as
you
well
go.
bring me back
There
too.
you go.
Right call.
Yeah, it is what it is. But all right, off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. Let's send it over to Elliot with Elliot's headlines.
Oh.
Elliot loves three things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
R.I.P. Jonathan India. That's how we might have to add Jonathan India's name in there because he's no longer with us. Headlines. If you didn't watch last night, the Ravens, they beat the Chargers 30-23. Lamar 16 for 22, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry ran 24 times for 140 yards as well. Justice Hill ripped off a 50-yard touchdown to put the game away. Justin Herbert 21 for 36, 218 yards, no touchdowns, but he did rush one in. So that is your Chargers versus Ravens game. Nothing has gone the Bengals' way. Not a single thing.
Nope.
And nothing will go our way for the rest of the season. College basketball, there were some phenomenal games yesterday. 22nd ranked Xavier, they came back to beat South Carolina 75-66. Zach Freemantle was the leading scorer, 16 points, added 9 rebounds as well. Jerome Hunter, our good friend, he scored 10 points, 4 for 8 shooting, and Xavier somehow won this game shooting 4 for 18 from 3. So battling adversity there. Dayton. Your Dayton Flyers, Kenner. You see how they lost last night?
I stayed up to the very end. The game ended about 2 a.m., but yeah, I stayed up to the very end. The Maui kills it every year.
It's so
It's
good.
outside of March Madness. It's the second greatest thing of college basketball. It hits every year.
I went to bed at halftime.
Yep.
And I was looking at the live line. Should I take North Carolina? I mean, that lead's so big. They blew it. I mean, they just straight up blew it. They blew a 20-point lead and lost to North Carolina. So tough for Dayton.
That's like the reason that people get on me about Dayton is because it's very weird. So Archie Miller, brother of Sean, of course.
Sure.
Archie Miller goes on this run where it just takes him to multiple years straight in the NCAA tournament. They get to an Elite Eight. They get to Sweet 16s. They go on deep tournament runs. They were ranked once or twice during his run, but they would always crack the top 25 and then lose right away. But it didn't matter. Archie Miller's run in Dayton was the NCAA tournament. It was all about March Madness. Then you flip the script, and then you get Anthony Grant in here, who is now, and by the way, Archie Miller didn't have the flashiest recruiting classes, didn't have a lot of NBA guys or anything. It was just thorough coaching up guys and making memories in March. And then you get the Anthony Grant era, where it's all about the NBA players. The level of talent has increased at Dayton dramatically since Anthony Grant has taken over, but they've had one NCAA tournament appearance in the 7 years that he has been there. And I've been critical of that, and people get on me. But I think he's a very obviously he knows the game. He knows more about the game than I will ever know. I will never pretend to know more. But the results speak for themselves. He is a horrible coach in late game situations. I wasn't surprised that they blew a 21-point lead in the second half. How do you have a 21-point lead in the second half and you've shot 32 threes on the night?
Yeah.
I could see if you're down, like North Carolina should have been the one shooting 30-plus threes to get back into it. It would be like if, in the NFL or football in general, and your team is up by 3 possessions, but your quarterback throws for 50 times. Like, that's going to lead to, obviously, a lot of potential for constantly giving the ball back to the opponent and giving him a window to get back into it. And that's what Dayton did. 32 threes. You were up by 21. 32 threes. Long misses led to runouts for North Carolina. They get that momentum going. A lot of and ones, big plays down the stretch. That's just on not having control of the game. I was furious at how that game went down last night, but it doesn't surprise me that North Carolina came back and won. That's a talented team. But 32 threes shot by a team that had a 21-point lead in the second half. I don't like that. Slow that down. and limit the possessions for North Carolina. You were feeding them possessions late in that game. It was very frustrating to watch. I know this is a Cincinnati area show, but I just thought that was wild because Ohio has a lot of, I think Ohio State's a top 25 caliber team when they get everyone back and healthy. Dayton would have been top 25 had they beat North Carolina last night. And then to see Xavier and Cincinnati in the top 25, Ohio is a fun state when it comes to college basketball. And it was on display last night. I mean, it's pretty fun to watch. It was a great game, don't get me wrong, but that finish didn't surprise me whatsoever. I mean, 21-point lead in the second half, 32 threes, and you let it slip through. And don't talk to me about fouls. They want to blame the officiating. You shot 32 threes. You weren't attacking the paint. North Carolina was driving into the paint. Of course they were going to get calls. It drives me nuts. Stop blaming officiating. Infuriates me. Shout out to, I'm sure you're going to get to it, UConn.
Well, that was going to be my segue. Yeah. I was gonna say, and speaking of officiating, but you ruined it. So speaking of officiating, Memphis, they take down second-ranked UConn 99-97 in overtime. Dan Hurley, he told CBS Sports he doesn't feel his overtime technical cost UConn the game, saying, quote, "I think it was the SHI blank blank calls." He said, adding, "I would expect to come to play in an event, and I don't know too many back-to-back national championship teams that get that type of a whistle."
I like pulling the back-to-back national championship card this early.
Yeah,
Preseason tournament. That's
I
good
like
stuff.
that.
It's called a flex.
Yeah, I like that.
Hurley told Matt Norlander he believes he got the T in OT not because of cursing, but because he fell to the ground in disbelief over McNeely's over-the-back call. He's also aware of how his behavior came off. Quote, what I gave the cameras today was Oppenheimer.
That was his masterpiece. The refs were bad.
I watched the game, and they weren't good. I've never seen a guy just absolutely scold officials like that guy does. I don't know what does he get fined? Is there a fine for that?
They'll be fined.
There'll be a fine for that? Because that's crazy. I mean,
Well, that's what's weird. Who does fine you technically? Is it the school or the conference?
It would be the conference,
You're not
right?
fighting conference officials, though, so I'm not really sure how that works in basketball. But he didn't care. He didn't give a rip.
Anyway.
He got paid a lot of money to turn down the Lakers' job to stay with them, so he can rip the officials all he wants. He can afford it.
It was very, very funny. UConn hit a game-tying three with, what was that, less than a second left to force overtime. Those of us who had plus 5.5 live line were very happy about that. But, yeah, listen. So that's it pretty much for headlines. DeMarcus Robinson I saw. This was one of the ESPN headlines I was looking at today. DeMarcus Robinson was arrested for suspicion of DUI. The Rams wide receiver, DeMarcus Robinson. Outside of that, that was pretty much it. UC has been losing a bunch of recruits in football. I've been seeing, I think, what is that, number 8 on the year?
Something like
7,
that.
8.
It's getting up there.
Tough. They lose one to Ohio State.
6'5" corner. I thought that was a typo at first. It seems like he's a freak, Jordan Woods.
It's not good. I'm gonna at some point today. I am gonna get the John Fanta call here. Did you see that?
That
the John Fanta UC call.
Incredible.
I didn't hit the call.
So the prank call. The
Twitter space.
The Twitter space.
Oh, about the question about the
rankings.
Okay, yes. Then I did hear that. Actually, I heard that on the way in.
I was gonna say it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So I'll send that to Casey and we'll play that at some point during the show.
Enjoy your $5 bet on Thanksgiving.
But those are your headlines.
We do have another headline about 5 minutes ago. Former Pro Bowl edge rusher Shaq Barrett, the Buccaneer, he retired this offseason. He's applied for reinstatement. So he will. He's trying to come back and play football. The Dolphins currently have his contractual rights. So if he comes back, he would go to the Dolphins. Would be a good piece for them to add for the playoff push. They're certainly in the mix now, more than we thought they were a few weeks ago. So a good addition for them going into the end of the season.
Yep. That's at one point he wanted to be a Bengal, right? Weren't they close to getting a deal?
Yeah, there were conversations about it. They were certainly linked.
But obviously now not as talented as what he was
No.
a couple years ago, of course, but a depth piece, no doubt about it. Real quick on UConn, back-to-back champions. Hurley, I love his coaching style, I love his personality. It's very different. It's Bob Knight-esque. It's very old school as far as that goes. But is UConn about to be an unlikable program? Because that's what we do, right? Like, you're a good story, the come up, UConn basketball coming back again. They've won championships with Calhoun, did it with Kevin Ollie, and then here comes obviously Hurley coming in and adding his flair to it, winning back-to-back national championships. Are they on the cusp of being a very unlikable program at this point, especially with the way Hurley acts on the sideline, and especially with how he presented himself in the press conference afterwards? Where are we at with the perception of UConn basketball? Basketball, to me, college basketball needs a villain again, because it's no longer Duke anymore. When Krzyzewski was there, they were more unlikable, although Duke still is Duke. North Carolina's not the same without Roy Williams. Obviously, Kentucky without Calipari, they're not as unlikable now. Who's the villain in college basketball? Is that role about to be filled by UConn and Hurley with the way he carries himself in press conferences and on the sideline?
More likely than not, probably. I mean, back-to-back national championships, and they're certainly towards the top of the table this year. He's more fiery than any coach on the sideline in the whole country. I think most people probably do hate him. I'll personally never hate UConn and Hurley. I love Hurley, and I root for them in the Big East for sure.
Yeah, I'm not in the Big East, so I don't think they're the type of program that Duke was. So it's hard to put them in the blue blood category, and it's like
you still do.
Yeah.
I like the Duke, Kentuckys of the world. Like, I still think no matter who's coaching them, I still think you don't want them to win. North Carolina, I don't want any of them to win. I have no issues with UConn, if we're to be honest. I like him. I think he's funny, but he certainly is a villain. I mean, he does play the villain role very well. So, college basketball needs that.
Yeah,
there's not that many characters anymore. So
no, that's the thing college basketball is missing is the characters, and it feels like with all those legends that you just listed retiring, even Boeheim in Syracuse, I feel like college basketball was really zapped of a lot of their icons in a very small window, which I don't think happens to a lot of sports very often. Usually they taper off, and you one by one, and someone hangs on. It feels like they're in like a 5-year stretch, maybe even less than that. They lost really every iconic coach in the sport, and even Calipari lost so much of that, whatever it is about him.
Aura?
When you go, aura. When you go from Kentucky to Arkansas, it's not the same, vibe. So, I think college basketball has certainly lost some of that, and if Hurley and UConn can fill in that role, it'd be great for the sport. Yeah,
because you have Hurley now, who's a character. Calipari still, obviously, with Arkansas, a little bit of a refresher for him. I think that, breathes a little fresh air into his career. You still have Tom Izzo at Michigan State, but Michigan State, obviously ever since the landscape has changed, Michigan State hasn't been that same program in quite some time. Roy Williams and Coach K both retired. I guess you have Rick Pitino, who's still, back on the sidelines at St. John's, but he hasn't been able to get them back to the point to where he was regularly a top contender when he was at Louisville. So either way. But all right, this is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. College Football Hall of Famer, former Buckeye, former NFL Pro Bowl running back Keith Byars will join us coming up here in just a little bit as well. But we'll step away for a few moments. Curious your guys' thoughts. Zach Taylor addressed the media yesterday. Just his message to the team coming out of the bye week and your expectations for the Bengals coming out of the bye week, heading into their matchup with the Steelers. Quick Bengals segment coming up around the corner. And then we'll talk college football and NFL with Keith Byars. More Off the Bench when we come back. We talked yesterday briefly, Cincinnati Bengals favored over the Steelers coming up this weekend, coming out of the bye week, of course. Zach Taylor addressed the media yesterday. We're going to talk about the ping pong tables being brought back in the locker room coming up here in a moment. But here's Zach Taylor briefing the media yesterday on kind of what his message was for the team coming out of the bye week as they prepare for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's Zach Taylor.
What's your message to the team as everybody got a chance to get away and get back with these next couple of games?
What a great opportunity for us. I mean, at home against Pittsburgh in a divisional game, no better way to get our season back on track right now than to have our best week, and so, I thought the energy was tremendous when we played the Raiders here recently from the crowd. I expect the same when we're playing Pittsburgh. Players will certainly match that energy as well, and so just phenomenal opportunity. This is December football. This is where it means something. Regardless of what our record is right now, you need to play your best football in December. And now more than ever, we're going to need that from our guys. And they understand that. They subscribe to it, and we just keep moving forward from here.
What is your message?
All right. Well, Zach Taylor never really says anything different from one week to the other.
It's a great opportunity.
Great opportunity. December, this is the time you want to be playing your best football, yada, yada, yada. Nothing major to take away from that other than the point that, he comes out and he talks about the importance of this week and this matchup. But I'll throw it to you guys. Obviously, with this team, last time you saw them out on the field, a crushing finish against the Chargers. I don't know after a loss like that 2 weeks you have to stew on that. Obviously, that's you hate that. You'd love to get back out on the field as soon as possible. But could the timing of the bye week be a good thing? The fact that you're not taking that negative energy into the Steelers this week, is that extra week of the bye week an opportunity to kind of shake that off, put a fresh coat of paint on this, and attack the final month and some change of the season and give yourself a shot? What do you think the message is for the Bengals coming out of the bye week? What are expectations for this matchup with the Steelers? Because, again, last time you saw them, negative vibes. You lose the way you did against the Chargers. You've had 2 weeks to stew on it. Now a few days out from when they get back out on that field. But what do you think the vibe is like in Cincinnati right now? We talked about the ping pong tables. I'll let you guys take over with that. But Zach Taylor trying everything he can to push the right buttons to get this team to buy back in for the final stretch of the season.
It feels like when you go through something like I don't want to say traumatizing, but something like that, right? When you go through something that puts you on edge, you're stressed out, your heart's beating real fast, and now you're just trying to calm down. That's what it is. They've gotten through the stress, and right now we're just trying to calm down. That's at least how I see this. Bring up the ping pong tables. We're just going to have fun the rest of the way. It's clearly an expectation that to win the Super Bowl, to make the play, that expectation can't be a realistic possibility now. They know that. They're aware of that. But they're trying to at least keep the vibes in the locker room somewhat high heading into the final stretch of the season so we don't, blow everything up heading into next season. But I'm sure in the back of their minds, they're like, yeah, if we win out, maybe we can make the playoffs, yada, yada, yada. But that can't be a serious expectation. I imagine they're just trying to keep everybody calm, just relax, maybe try to play fun football the rest of the way. Because that's how I would do it. I mean, there's no other way you can do it. You're going to work these guys into the ground just to have them lose every single week? I don't know. It's the NFL. They're getting paid millions of dollars, so maybe that is the attitude. But if it was me, if I was Zach Taylor, and it clearly seems like that, bringing back little arcade games, then sure, yeah, just make everybody feel at least a little bit better about the losing situation that we're all in.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's kind of the saving grace for the Bengals coming out of right now is that this is a familiar situation. The Bengals have gone into the bye really the last 2 or 3 years with the same thing in front of them. You have a really big uphill battle to get into the playoffs, and you got to rip off a lot of wins. And the Bengals have been a really, really good team after the bye. Really, the entirety of Joe Burrow's tenure under Zach Taylor, even last year with Jake Browning, they were able to rip off a good number of wins after the bye. So if there is a team that knows where they're at right now and knows what it takes and has been in this situation before, it is the Bengals, and it is Zach Taylor at the helm of the team because they've done it before and they've snuck into the playoffs before. So who knows what could happen? I don't think the bye could be coming at a better time. I think if you beat the Chargers, you're kind of kicking yourself that you have the week off now, but with everything in front of you and you know exactly what you have to do, and that is win out. I think the bye to reset and really attack that new goal of going 6-0 is a really perfect time. And like Elliot said, I don't think it's the expectation to make the playoffs, but I do think a lot of people in this room or in this building think that it's certainly a possibility. I think they are bought in that they can beat these 6 teams and make the playoffs. So we'll see what happens, but the bye certainly coming at the right time. And if Zach Taylor can turn this season around, then he's been able to use the bye to do it before. So hopefully he can do that again.
Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Again, you got the Bengals and the Steelers coming up this weekend. Last night, Monday Night Football, Chargers Ravens. Obviously, those two teams twice. Losing to the Ravens twice in the fashion that you did. In fact, 2 matchups with the Ravens and the matchup with the Chargers, all very similar finishes. Big, explosive offensive numbers by the Bengals. The defense, obviously, putting them in tough spots where they have to be perfect throughout, coming up short in all 3 of those matchups. You see both of those teams out on the field last night. The Hard Bowl is what they were calling it. I forgot. I didn't even that with everything going on, I didn't even realize that both the Harbaughs were going against one another last night of all the storylines that were out there. But you watch that matchup, which team were you just fuming over more? I mean, you watch Baltimore get down, you're sick because the Chargers are doing it. Then you see Baltimore come back, then you're pissed at the Ravens are coming back. Which team were you more disgusted with last night watching out on that field?
I think I feel like the Chargers just wasted opportunities. Yeah. But the Ravens are a good team. The Ravens are a team that you don't want to play behind against because they just have Derrick Henry and he's just going to run it for 7 yards a carry. If I was a playoff team and I was watching that game, deciding who I want to play, I would certainly want to play the Ravens over the Chargers. But the Chargers, they have the San Diego effect, the old Chargers way of it feels like they can lose any game. Same way with the Bengals. They can just blow the game at any point. And that's kind of what it was, at least how I felt it last night. Justice Hill breaking off a 50-yard touchdown to end it. It was just I wasn't disappointed, or I didn't take too much away from that game other than the fact that those are two good teams, and the Chargers had opportunities, didn't capitalize. But it is fun watching other teams that can get stops at a consistent basis and make it a close game the whole way. But
I think the Ravens are a good team. I don't really think that showed me too much new information last night. I think the Chargers have a little bit ways to go until they're in the top tier of the AFC. Maybe we overreacted to that win over the Bengals, putting them in top 5s of power rankings and stuff like that. But I think the Chargers are a really good team, and they're a team that I certainly wouldn't want to play in the playoffs. I think last night, though they did blow the lead, showed that they can hang at least for a half with that level of team. When we know the Ravens are at least towards the top of the AFC in terms of Super Bowl contenders. So that showed me a lot about the Chargers, even though they blew the lead and lost. And at 7-4, we know that they're probably going to make the playoffs this year. I mean, they haven't clinched anything yet, but it'd be really hard to see them missing the playoffs at somehow this season. So they're going to get in, and with Justin Herbert and Harbaugh at the helm, I think the Chargers are a team that can definitely make some noise.
let's play a game. ESPN's power rankings. Where do the Bengals fall? Anybody want to guess? Casey, you guess first. 1 through 32, where are they?
I'm going to say 22.
Is this Price is Right?
This is Price is Right.
So you can't go over?
Can't go over.
Are you saying higher number or over being 1 is the highest?
No, 32 is the highest.
Okay. 18.
I'm going to say 20.
And Kinner nailed it. 20.
Wow.
It is
Yeah,
20. It is 20. Offensive ranking of 10, defensive ranking of 28, special teams ranking of 22.
Nice. So everything stinks.
Everything stinks. Well, the offense top 10, top 10.
Yeah, well, we knew that.
Where do they have the Chargers and the Ravens? Let's see. Chargers are ranked 9. Baltimore Ravens are ranked 8th. It's pretty good.
It's good to see, J.K. Dobbins was just a regular old normal running back last night, Didn't have an outer-body experience like he did against Cincinnati a few weeks ago. And then there's old Derrick Henry.
He did get hurt, though.
Yeah, it's a shame he got hurt.
Did he? Oh, in the first half?
Well, he left the game in the third quarter, never came back, or in the second quarter, never came back.
Second quarter, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he never came back late in that game. 6 carries, 40 yards. So my bad, J.K. Dobbins. I guess he was averaging 6.
He did kind of go off in the first half.
He did.
6.5.
He was having a good
I
first
just
half.
looked at that final line. I'm like, well, damn, I didn't even hear his name in the second half. I didn't have the volume up, so I didn't even realize that. But Derrick Henry goes off 24 carries, 140 yards. Didn't get in the end zone. But,
It's amazing what happens when Todd Monken stops eating crayons in the press box and gives the ball to Derrick Henry. I mean, they have 4 losses on the season. They just forget to give the ball to Derrick Henry. You paid the guy how much money to come be your starting running back, and he's incredible. Give him the ball.
It's like that mental tug of war where you just want to keep going with Lamar.
Really good.
You want to keep going with Lamar Jackson every chance you get, but it's obvious that when this team is at its best, it's when Derrick Henry is the number one piece in that offense, and then letting Lamar complement it. But it's weird having to mentally force yourself to tell your 2-time MVP quarterback that he needs to be the second most important piece offensively. But if they want to win anything of significance this year, that's going to have to be the case when it's all said and done. So with that final last night, again, we talked about it yesterday. We don't need to go much further into detail on this, but with the playoff picture at this point, obviously thought it was closer than it was. But when you start to look at the fact that, okay, Bengals 4-7, the teams holding down those final spots, all 7-4, 7-5, 8-4. Now there's that 3-game gap between win totals at this point. They got their work cut out for them. But at this point, it's like you've talked about the conflict. You want to keep winning to give yourself a shot, but the likelihood of making the playoffs is very slim. So you keep winning. All you're doing is hurting your draft stock when it's all said and done. And that's the mental gymnastics that the organizations have to play.
I don't think there's a world where the Bengals make the playoffs. I don't think there's a scenario. I don't think there's an outcome.
I was holding on longer than you were, but I'm looking at this now. I think Denver's actually good. I was counting everyone out because I was not buying into Denver. I thought the Chargers were vulnerable, and I know they lost last night. But Quentin Johnson catches that pass.
He might stink. That guy might stink.
He might stink.
Yeah, he's interesting. One week though, he looks legit. There are weeks where he looks legitimate, and then he reminds you why we had him in the bust category coming into this season. Last night was one of those. Wide open. He would have had the whole sideline to work with late in that fourth quarter with about 6 minutes to go. They had a chance to go down and tie it up, and then he drops it. They punt it away, and the Ravens come down. I think Hill breaks off for that huge touchdown and puts that game away. But, no, the 7 would – I think Denver's legit. I think the Chargers are going to hold that down. I think the 7 teams that are in the playoff spots right now, that's your playoff. I think that
I agree.
think the seeding can move around a bit, but I think those are your playoff teams, right? Like Miami might make it interesting, but again,
I think
have to
Miami
see
might
what
make it close, and then that's it.
I think I would bet Miami does make it close. Packers, Jets, Texans, Niners, Browns, Jets. They got to win 5 of those 6. I think they could do it.
Yeah, I think they could.
Then you look at the NFC. You have the Cardinals, who are having a very good year. They're 6-5 on the season. They're 500. They're on the outside looking in. The NFC obviously deeper than the AFC, which is kind of wild. We didn't think that would be the case coming into this season, but that's basically where we're at right now. The Commanders, are they on fraud alert? I mean,
Yes,
where
they
are
are.
we with the Commanders
Yes, they
at this
are.
point?
Ring the
Okay,
bell.
my question for you.
Jaden Daniels hasn't been a good quarterback in like 4
Fraud
weeks.
from what, though? Because
Well-
they weren't supposed to be good.
No, but then they were good. So then you have to recalibrate. And since the recalibration, they're fraudulent.
Can you recalibrate the fraud meter? Or is it locked in preseason?
I think no, you can recalibrate that,
Okay.
right, Casey?
So the Bengals aren't frauds?
I do have a
No, they
take
are
on
frauds.
this. I mean, what's the coach's name? The offensive coordinator?
Cliff.
He's done this throughout his
Every
entire
year.
NFL career.
Yeah.
Anytime you look at his entire NFL career, he's struggled in the back half of the season. He just doesn't adjust, and
After
that's
week
what's
10.
happening with Washington right now.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
I don't think it has anything to do with players. I think it has something to do with the coaching staff. But that's just my take.
No, you're right, because Kyler Murray on multiple occasions was playing at an MVP-like level heading into week 8 and 9 multiple times when he was there. And then in the back half would have those epic collapses.
Yeah.
And you're right. A lot of it is teams in the league adjusts. You don't adjust. You keep playing it the same way you were to start. But they look drastically different at this point. You're big on Caleb Williams. Obviously, there's been the starting out slow. Then he gets it. The league counterpunches. Now it's up to them to counterpunch again. But who would have thought coming in? I would not have put money on Bo Nix potentially coming away with Offensive Rookie of the Year when it's all said and done. Like that
No, yeah. Jaden Daniels got all the way down to, I believe it was like minus 1,000 or very, very close to it to win the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. And now they're basically even. I mean, it couldn't be closer for the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jaden Daniels at minus 180, Bo Nix at plus 150. No one else really even in the conversation. Those two guys, Bo Nix, I mean, the first however many weeks for Jaden Daniels and then the last however many weeks for Bo Nix, they've been unbelievable. 2 of the better stretches we've ever seen from rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So it's great to see the rookies continue to come into the league and contribute right away. I mean, we saw CJ do it last year, coming to the Texans, turn them around right away. It's going to be interesting to see, though, and we're already seeing it now in Houston a little bit, how do teams and fans react to when that instant success doesn't sustain right out of the gates? These young guys are going to struggle at some point in their career. We're seeing it now in Houston. CJ hasn't been playing very well over the last few weeks, and some people are freaking out about it. A couple years ago, we just called this a sophomore slump, and it happened to everyone. So I think the instant success, though it is nice, and it's great for coaches, and it's great for fan bases, we have to be careful not to, turn on these young guys playing quarterback if they aren't just as good in year 2, when everyone else, NFL defensive coordinators, have the film and everything else to combat them. So stick with the young guys, whether they're good in year 1 or not, for the long haul. I think these rookie quarterbacks are better than they've ever been coming into the NFL.
I want to throw a scenario out to you guys and see your thoughts on this. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in a very interesting little situation here.
Sure.
Like they not finally, because they had Tom Brady, won him a Super Bowl, and then they didn't have to wait long like New England still, and they may have found it with Drake May, but New England has been drowning ever since Tom Brady left, and the Buccaneers find Baker Mayfield, and their heads above water. But this is an old roster. They're running in place. If with Baker Mayfield moving forward, you win those 7-8 games, you're running in place at this point. This roster has gotten older. The roster has a lot of flaws. I read a report earlier this morning that the Buccaneers, keep an eye on them if they ultimately miss the playoffs, they could potentially look to blow this roster up. You look at the draft order right now, and you look at the fact that there's not a lot of great quarterbacks. This isn't a deep quarterback draft. We've talked about that many times. If you're the Buccaneers, I don't know what the value of Baker Mayfield is out there, but you know that this guy, he's playing at a very, very high. I don't know why I can't use the word elite. What, can you use the word elite? Statistically, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
He's
Top
been
5
good.
statistically from a yards and touchdown standpoint. It's very weird to use that word. What's the value of Baker Mayfield out there if the Buccaneers decided, hey, we have our first-round pick, but we might dangle Baker Mayfield out there because Baker's great in Tampa, don't get me wrong, but he's not your long-term quarterback of the future there. and you're just running in place at this point. Godwin and those guys are getting older. I think the Buccaneers are closer to hitting the reset button than we think, and I think they have a very important piece in Baker Mayfield, who I think they could dangle out there to the top of the draft order and maybe get lucky. What would you do if you're a team in the top 10 right now? Would you use a top 10 pick to trade for a Baker Mayfield if you're any of those teams right now?
I mean, if I were a team and I didn't have a quarterback, of course I'd trade for him.
Top 10 pick.
I mean, he's a franchise quarterback. I believe he is. You can go around the NFL and look at your whoever you want to call or the elite of the elite. I mean, I would take Baker Mayfield over Dak Prescott at this very second. If you were just offering him to me, and if I were a team like, I don't know, I'm just trying to think. I know the Panthers. I can't throw the Panthers because they already had him. But maybe the Raiders. Maybe the Raiders, a team that just doesn't have a quarterback at all, and you have decent talent around him, not great talent, but some offensive talent around there in Brock Bowers. But I think Baker Mayfield's a franchise quarterback. I guess that's where I just disagree with you because he's 29 years old. He's 2 years older than Joe Burrow. I think he's more than good enough of being a top 10 quarterback. I think he's as good as Jared Goff. I wouldn't
trade a top 10 pick for Jared Goff.
No, maybe not a top 10 pick, but I certainly think a first round pick.
That's a big difference.
No, but it is. But it's like I think it's closer to a top 10 pick if we're gonna be honest. Because what quarterback would give you that? The Baker Mayfield level talent. None in this draft class.
I would way rather draft a quarterback than trade a top 10 pick for Baker.
That's fair.
Baker's on a 3-year, $30 million a year contract.
I think Baker's pretty good.
I also think the Buccaneers view him as their franchise quarterback.
I don't think they would trade Baker Mayfield.
Right. They signed him to a massive extension the last offseason. I don't think they're going to trade Baker. I think he's certainly their franchise quarterback in Tampa. I think they're going to try to build around him. I think you maybe look to tag and trade Chris Godwin on the last year of his deal. I know he's hurt, so there's some complications with that. But you have the left tackle locked up for the long-term interest in Wirfs. You have a good running back room with Rashad White and Bucky Irving. I think there's enough pieces in Tampa that they wouldn't blow it up completely. And if they had that on their mind, they probably wouldn't have extended Baker to that massive contract last offseason. I certainly wouldn't trade a top 10 pick. We could maybe debate a first-round pick, but I don't even think he'd get that. I think it'd be a second and a fifth, something in the middle in there. I don't think a 29-year-old quarterback on that kind of contract would garner a first-round pick anyway. So then you even have to ask, would it be worth it for Baker to be moved for that kind of return?
I just think $30 million a year is not a big-time contract.
For a 29-year-old that's had like 2 franchise quarterback seasons in his career?
Yeah, but I think like the other thing too, you're not wrong. I just think because the NFL, you could turn things around so quick. Like if you're the New York Jets and you look at the receivers and the weapons you have, and I know they're a chaotic mess. By the way, Mike Tannenbaum, the GM that they fired, they're having him come in to help assist them in looking for their next GM. It doesn't, like, y'all can make fun of my Browns all you want. You can make fun of my Browns all you want. I know they're a dumpster fire, but like I think the Jets have to be.
They went and fired a legitimate search firm to get Joe Douglas and all their new front office, and that didn't work. So they said, okay, we'll go get Twitter analysts. They hired the 33rd team. Like, that's Twitter. What are we doing, New York? You have good pieces. You brought in Aaron Rodgers, and it tanked some of the best young talent in the entire league. And now you're bringing in the GM you fired to hire this GM to find your next GM. It doesn't make any sense.
But, like, I look at that team who's going to be picking high in the draft. And I'm not saying – and you may not have to use that top 10 draft pick as what you were referring to. But if they valued it that much and said, you bring Baker in now with the way he's playing and with the receivers you have, like, it is – you could turn it around very quickly.
Yeah.
It's an option – just because the way, you know, certain teams are set
up.
Well,
what receivers are they going to have? Because when Aaron Rodgers signs somewhere else, he's going to take Alan Lazard and Devontae Adams and, well, I guess Randall Cobb's retired.
Well, luckily Wilson and him.
They'll just re-sign Randall Cobb.
Luckily Wilson and him don't get along.
Yeah, right.
Jordy Nelson will come back.
Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, to go back to your original point, I think a Baker Mayfield type quarterback can give you a first-round pick. And I do. I firmly believe that he's good enough to warrant a first-round pick. Maybe not top 10, but certainly a first-round pick to a desperate franchise. You can do a lot worse than Baker Mayfield out there. A lot worse.
You absolutely could. Yeah. No, you're definitely right in that.
Baker's a top 15. He's definitely a top 15 quarterback.
Right around there.
And we always put slotted value on certain things. But Baker Mayfield to the Jets, he is so valuable. He's more valuable to the Jets in the top 10 than he is to anyone else. Like, the other teams are quite a few pieces away. And I'm not saying the Jets are very close because they're a mess right now. But you get the head coach right and you get the quarterback right, special things could happen. I think he has more value to the Jets than really anyone else in the top 10. The Raiders could be pretty close to that too, though, especially with that tight end that they have. That tight end's a monster in Byars. So we'll see what ends up happening. Casey, when we're good, you can give me the thumbs up. We're not. We're getting that figured out. Okay. With the audio. Okay. We'll figure that out. But we'll step away for a few moments, and we're going to talk about Ohio State, Michigan as we prepare for the biggest rivalry in sports coming up this weekend. We're trying to figure out the audio situation with Keith Byars. We'll get to him coming up here around the corner as well. More Off the Bench when we come back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliott Rearing, Jacob Tissett. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Little touch and go segment here, more of that, fancy radio Elliott Rearing lingo here. But you threw out a Thanksgiving segment. What are we thankful for? What are we doing here for this touch and go?
Listen, I just wanted to say, what are your Thanksgiving traditions? I'll give you mine. I'll give you mine right now. So on every Thanksgiving, I wake up usually pretty late, I guess I would say. Wednesday night, the night before, we always spend the night at a grandparents' house, and then we spend the night there. Shout out to my grandparents. And then we wake up the next day, and we go back to our house, we get ready, come back to the same grandparents' house for a brunch, as they call it in the business.
They do call it that. I've heard that.
/ lunch. I watch football all day, and then we go to our other grandparents'
Why not
house.
Leckfest?
I like Leckfest a lot, and I wish they would use it.
I think so.
But I think brunch is
it's monopolized.
They've already made the
window.
shirts. They've already made the shirts.
shirts.
But I watch football all day long, and it's very fun. That's what I do. Oh, and then we end the day. I think usually we go back to the first grandparents' house again. I get confused sometimes.
A lot of grandparents in there.
A lot of grandparents. Listen, we got 4 of them, so we got to go party at their houses.
That's good stuff.
And then we watch Christmas Vacation. We always end the night on Christmas
very
Vacation.
nice.
So that's our Thanksgiving tradition there.
So it sounds like you pop around from house to house for a bit too, but everyone lived fairly close though? Right? Like everyone lived fairly close?
Yeah, I would say about everybody's, both grandparents, I think, were within like 5-minute drive.
Okay, so that's not bad. Like, so for me and my wife, we're from, she's from St. Henry, I'm from Van Wert. So we have to, every holiday, and look, I love being married. I love my family, no doubt. But holidays aren't as enjoyable for us because we're the ones that have to do all the driving. We have to drive 2 hours, to go this family, and then we have to, we got to eat. That smells good, but I don't want to eat too much because then I'm going to offend my mom if I go to my mom's, and then I'm not.
You got to eat.
You ate at her house, so you didn't eat at our house, so you have to pretend to be starving at both houses that you go to, and then you're just stressed. You're tired from driving all over the place, and then you get home that night because my wife works the next day, and then we're like, I'm kind of hungry. We didn't really eat that much. And we're there. And then we're kicking ourselves because we didn't, it is what it is. But luckily, you just have to drive around a couple stops right there. You at the same spot the whole day?
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't been home for Thanksgiving in 4 years, so real excited to be back.
You've been rolling with the tide the last 4 years.
No, this will be my first Thanksgiving and Christmas home in 4 years. So very excited to be back, spend it with some family. It'll be fun.
How about that? Do you plan to now? Is it accepted to watch football at your places?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the main event.
Because I feel like my family sometimes gets a little testy. Oh, you watching football? Why are you watching football?
Well, the women say that.
It's football,
and the men watch the football.
It's football. That's what it is. I want to watch some football.
It's Thanksgiving. I'm gonna eat too much food and have to physically sit down.
I love how the NFL took Christmas too.
Yeah.
Because it used to be like my parents would say, well, "Why are you watching the NBA? You don't care about the NBA." Well, now it's the NFL. Now I care about the NFL.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
That's right. Because they did have me.
Oh yeah,
they had me. They had me there.
They did,
but I was still gonna watch the basketball.
They did, and then on Friday we used to do a turkey bowl.
Oh, very nice.
Turkey bowl ended abruptly. Friend broke a finger, and that was the end of the turkey bowl. No more turkey bowl for us. So we do a cornhole tournament now. So we get all our buddies together, and we have a cornhole tournament in the morning, and that goes until the evening. It's very fun.
Big time.
Are we good, though? Are we ready to rock?
Yeah, we're ready.
Oh, well, look at that. All right, well, I'll tell you what. We'll step away for a few moments. Coming up on Saturday, of course, Thanksgiving's on Thursday, but after, of course, all the driving around, after spending all the time with the family, after the NFL on Thanksgiving Day, and then, of course, NBA, whatever's on that day, we turn our attention towards college football. And, of course, the biggest rivalry in all of sports, Ohio State, Michigan, coming up on Saturday. We're going to talk with one of the all-time greats to play at Ohio State Hall of Famer, College Football Hall of Famer, Keith Byars. He joins us next. All right, we welcome you back. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube and ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. The biggest rivalry in all of sports coming up this weekend, Ohio State, Michigan, a noon kick. For our ESPN listeners in Dayton, of course, we are Dayton's radio home for Ohio State football. 10:30 coverage begins. Walking you right up to kickoff at noon, of course. And our next guest, who's played in this game, who will be at the game coming up on Saturday and is itching to witness the Buckeyes put an end to that cheaters up north winning streak that they have over the Buckeyes at this point. One of the all-time greats to ever do it, put on a Buckeye jersey, College Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Keith Byars, hanging out with us. Keith, it's been a whole 24 hours since I've seen you, but welcome back. How are you?
Yes,
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I'm doing good this day. You guys, you're doing good. I'm listening to some of this show. Y'all getting after it. Pretty good. Nice.
No, this is a tame show.
This it back.
This is a tame show. They they're not like Kev lets me get away with some of my hot takes. They don't. So there's a little resistance from time to time.
That's good. That's good. A little pushback every once in a while.
So we were talking about your career before you came on a little bit ago. I shared with them we're doing our Buckeye pregame show this past Saturday. Ohio State getting set for Indiana, and there's the awkward little, we're talking. We look up, the TVs are up in the bar, and there's the 30 for 30 highlighting Doug Flutie's Heisman, and you said, "Hey, turn that off. What is going on?" But I said, "Yeah, that nothing, just a little awkward moment." Flutie celebrating the Heisman. You were on the screen too. You had to fake a smile as he's hoisting up the trophy.
I know. They should give me an Academy Award for that one.
But KB,
I gave a little golf clap at the end. I shook his hand. I'm like, oh, man.
And
I've been scarred for 40 years. That was 40 years ago, 1984. So I haven't watched the Heisman Trophy ceremony since. I just can't watch it anymore. I have PTSD. I just can't handle it. Nope, don't want to see it because they didn't call my name that Saturday evening. I was just waiting, and they didn't call my name. They called the wrong name. So I can't watch it no more.
Well, one thing you will be watching this Saturday, Ohio State, Michigan, of course. And I know you have all the takes in the world about this matchup, but how painful has it been the last 3 years to watch not just Ohio State lose to Michigan, but then to know that the way Michigan's been winning over the last 3 years has basically been just circled around the cheating scandal that has dominated the talking points of all of college football for the last couple of years. Seems like a clean slate this year. Obviously, Michigan not as good as in years past, but this is the year that Ohio State's licking their chops. They're wanting to put up 100 on Michigan on Saturday. Your thoughts heading into this matchup?
Well, I totally agree. I mean, it's been a long 3 years, and I can't do a fourth year. And the thing about the Ohio State-Michigan game, it's always been a very physical game. It's been, when I played in it, it was the most physical game on the schedule, but it also was the cleanest game. It was the hardest hitting, everything. In the last 3 years, we've simply been out-hit. And, you may beat an Ohio State team, but you don't out-hit them. You kind of maybe matches. But the last 3 Michigan games, we've been just simply, been beat up. Last year, I think Michigan went for it on 4th down 3 times and ran the ball and got all 3 times. That's just being out physical. That was last year and the year before that and the year before that. And now this year, it's time to turn the page, tell a new story. And the table is set for us to do what we're supposed to do. We control our own destiny. Ever since the loss to Oregon, every bit has been pointing to, well, we don't have to scoreboard watch it. We just go out there and win. And we just need to go out here and win on Saturday. And I'm going to be in the building. I'm glad you called me today on Tuesday because I have a voice. Become Sunday and Monday, I plan on not having much voice because I'm going to let it all explode there at Ohio Stadium Saturday at 12 o'clock.
Oh, 100%, Keith. And you said the physicality has been the biggest concern for Ohio State the last 3 years. That's absolutely correct. And with the O-line injuries for Ohio State coming into this game and the defensive line for Michigan with Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham being one of their strong suits, are you concerned at all that could bleed into this 4th year in a row? The O-line with Hinsman back at center looked good against Indiana, but a different task going up against this Wolverine front this weekend. How concerned are you about that offensive line and the new pieces in there?
Well, I'm concerned about both sides of the line of scrimmage, because that's where the game is always won in the trenches. And Michigan's only way they can beat us is by ball control, keeping the ball between 35 and 40 minutes, maybe even 45 minutes of the game. Keep our offense on the sideline, watching while they take these slow, methodical drives, 3 yards here, 2 yards there, 6 yards there, first down, all that kind of stuff. We can't allow that on Saturday, and that's what they think right now. If you're Michigan, why wouldn't you think it? If you've been a part of the Michigan team the last 3 years, you won the battle of the trenches, you got to believe that, it can happen again until proven otherwise. And then you're on the other side of the ledger, Ohio State, you got to be tired of hearing it about, losing to them and how we've lost to them. And all that goes away this Saturday if you handle your business. I was telling Justin this summer, I went to practice, talked to some of the players, and I remember pulling JT to him aloud to the side, and we just had to talk about the Michigan game. And I said, you've been here 3 years and you haven't beaten them. And I said, when November gets here, this was back in August, I said, when November gets here, you will have a chance to do it, and you go in your career on a high note by beating Michigan. You beat Michigan in November, those other 3 losses will go so far distant memories, and you're leaving your career on a high note. So they've been hearing it from various sources all over the years, through the 3 years, and it culminates this Saturday. Winning the battle in the trenches. Michigan did it last year. They lost their starting offensive lineman in the Ohio State game. Next guy up, and they didn't miss a beat. So our offensive line, they have got to be dominant, and so is the defensive line. We have got to harass them, and make them beat us with their arm. They have no passing game. So the only way they can win is by running the football and controlling the clock. So we just cannot simply allow that to happen.
You talk about JTT there. He wasn't the only one. A lot of seniors came back for their last season with the Buckeyes this year to try to avenge those 3 losses. Jack Sawyer talked about it right after the Indiana game, said he's not going to think about this win for even a second, turning the page to game week right away. How much does it mean for those seniors to leave Ohio State with at least one pair of gold pants?
Oh, it means a ton. I mean, because when we get together, you know, the brotherhood get together from guys from different eras, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. We're sitting around, we could be at a golf tournament. And, you know, you're shooting the breeze and like, how'd you do against Michigan? And you don't want to be the guy to say, I never beat them. And there's a few guys that I've been around, they've never beat Michigan. I'm like, wow, it's your whole career and you didn't beat Michigan? That's tough. Better you than me. You know, then you got other guys like Archie Griffin. I never lost to Michigan. I'm like, dang, I wish I could say that. Josh Perry, I never lost to Michigan. Wish I could say that, but hey, I did beat him. So, you know, that's how big it is. And I was telling, you know, JT, you'll remember this 40 years later. Here I am 40 years later since my last victory over Michigan, and it feels like yesterday. You know, even just talking to you right now, I'm getting a little goosebumps. I think I could suit up and play Saturday, maybe 1 or 2 snaps. You know, it will stay with you for the rest of your life. You know, I talk to guys, you know, much older than myself. Former linebacker in the 60s named Ike Kelly. Ike played at Ohio State in the mid-60s. And, you know, you mentioned Ohio State, Michigan to him. I'm like, that's what I'm talking. I'm going to be you one day, Ike. You know, somebody, you know, kicking 80 in the behind, and you mentioned Ohio State, Michigan game to me. I'm going to get, bulked up, ready to go play. I have an 8-month-old grandson. And every time I hold him and whisper in his ear, I tell him, you can't go to Michigan. Your college is going to be Ohio State or Purdue because your dad went there. But you think about going to Michigan, you will be out of the wheel. And he's 8 months old and don't really know what I'm talking about. But that's how deep it is with Ohio State, you know, the love for Ohio State and the hate for Michigan is.
Now, KB, you talk about that. You're telling your 8-month-old grandson, do not go to Michigan. Who was telling you not to go to Michigan? Because, you know, you were close. It took a legend at Ohio State to convince you. Share that story when you were trying to decide where you were going to play your college days.
That's true. I mean, you know, when you're 17, 18 years old, you know, you think you got a lot of answers, but then you run into somebody, you know, who's better adept at it. And I had a phone call during my recruiting process from Bo Schembechler, the Michigan, you know, great coach. And he wanted to come sit in my living room and have a meeting with me because the recruiter had, you know, sent me all kind of paraphernalia. So I take the meeting, and I just, you know, how do you turn down Bo Schembechler? Even though you hate him, he's the enemy, he's on the other sideline. I'm thinking I'm going to get some inside information. So he comes over to my house here in Dayton, Ohio, and 2 hours later, he sits in my living room and goes to talking. And next thing I know, I'm taking a recruiting visit to Michigan. I'm like, this is not a fair fight. What has this guy got over me? And I go to Michigan and, you know, have my first, you know, official recruiting visit. And then shortly thereafter, I get a phone call from the legendary Woody Hayes. He calls my house and my sister answered the phone. She said, Keith, telephone, is Woody Hayes on the phone? And I'm like, get out of here. She's playing tricks on me. Woody Hayes is not even a coach. Why is he calling me? You know, and I pick up the phone and it's Woody Hayes. And, you know, I know either Woody Hayes or a great imposter, which if you grew up in Ohio, you know what Woody Hayes' voice sounds like. And Woody Hayes proceeds to cussing me out. I heard you went to Michigan. Don't you want to be great? Yeah. He said, all great players stay in Ohio. And then he, you know, a few more words is not fit for, you know, public consumption. It was like, I'm talking to Woody Hayes and he's cursing me out. I said, well, I'm coming up there in 2 weeks for my visit. Well, I want to meet you. Sir, I want to meet you too. And so I visit Ohio State. I go to lunch that weekend with just myself, Earl Bruce, and Woody Hayes. And we're sitting at the old Highlight, one of Woody Hayes' favorite restaurant. And it's just us three. And Woody dominated the conversation. And I knew I was coming to Ohio State right then. You know, I always wanted to be a Buckeye, but when you're 17, 18 years old, you get a lot of recruits from all the world. Everybody's telling you you're the best thing since sliced bread, and you kind of like start feeling yourself a little too much. But that afternoon with Woody and Earl, I knew for a doubt. I was like, this is home. I'm coming to Ohio State. And It was just a time that I would never, ever forget. Being 4 years at Ohio State and being around Woody Hayes all 4 years while I was there. I was like, that's, Woody Hayes. Bo Schembechler worked for Woody Hayes. But Woody didn't work for Bo. I got to go to Ohio State over Michigan. And that was one of the many reasons why, I went to Ohio State. But, Woody Hayes, him and Archie Griffin, all that, they helped seal the deal to make me a Buckeye.
Buckeye fans are very lucky you chose Ohio State, one of the best to ever wear scarlet and gray. And Ohio State has two pretty good backs there right now, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson. We've seen this story with the Michigan game year after year now. The two running back system has been the Achilles heel of Ohio State, Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum over the last few years. How can Ohio State use these two special backs and turn the page and beat Michigan the way Michigan has beaten us the last few years?
Well, like we said earlier, it starts up front with the offensive line. But even really before it starts with Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. They have got to do their best coaching job. I've heard Chip Kelly read some of his quotes throughout the year, and he said he waits to the defense, see what they're giving us, and then we attack that area. I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy, because you see how we start off slow a lot of the times in these games, and then we pick it up as the game goes on. We're being more reactionary. I want to see us be the aggressor and tell defenses, you can't stop us, and this is why. So we come out and line up, what we want to do, what we want to get out. They got to, adjust to us instead of us always adjusting to them, and keep the pressure on. I mean, just like simple math right now, you only got 11 people on defense. And when we put Emeka Mbuka and Jeremiah Smith on the same side, you get 5 defensive backs in the game. You're going to double team both of those guys and leave Carnell Tate wide open, and you're going to think a linebacker's going to cover our tight end or our backside of the backfield. We already have the numbers. If you throw the ball to Travion or Quinshon Judkins in space, they're going to win 99 out of 100. Now you want to try to double team both for Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Mbuka? No. With who? Another defensive back. Now that even opens up even more running lanes. So I said all that to say we would run the ball better by passing first and then getting to the running game instead of trying to do offline runs that we run. Sometimes it's almost like give up. So we keep the pressure on them from the beginning and we do that. Michigan doesn't have enough answers for us. Next thing you know, in the first quarter, we have 14 points at least. And then once we get in that third quarter and we get up 3 scores, and then use Katie bar the door, then I want to beat them by 50 to 60 points and try to score 100. That's how you do it. Do the little things early and often, and then the Michigan threw the ball, I think 30-something times last week, and they still didn't throw for 200 yards. They can't throw their way back in the game. All we got to do is get up 10, 14 points, it's over. And then then the route comes on. I may even storm the field on Saturday with my old guy.
I'll be right there with you. I'll be right there with you.
Yes.
You mentioned his name. I have to ask the question. Jeremiah Smith, freshman, just came into Ohio State this year, and he's having the best freshman wide receiver season in the history of the program. Broke the receptions, yards, and touchdowns record. Just how good is number 4?
Oh, I think he's as good as advertised, maybe even better than advertised. Because now, he's getting the opportunity. And that's one of the keys to being great as a freshman, having the opportunities to go out there and do that. You look at just in recent history, I won't go over all Ohio State history, but look at Marvin Harrison Jr. He caught 6 passes in his first 12 games at Ohio State. And he caught 6 in the Rose Bowl and 3 touchdowns. How special would he have been as a freshman if he had opportunities? But he came into the team that already had Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. So it wasn't a lot of opportunities for him. So it's about timing. Jeremiah Smith comes in at the right time where there's more spaces available for him to come in early and often and make plays. So, but all that timing helps. So Jeremiah Smith as a freshman, I think he would be probably our first 3-time All-American wide receiver. Because if he's not first-team All-American this year, I want to know I don't know how many they picked, 2 or 3. I need to know who the 2 or 3 other first-team All-Americans in this country have played better than him. I just simply have not seen it.
I haven't seen it either. And we know how good Jeremiah is, and Mika Ibuka out there as well. Carnell Tate, highly recruited for sure. But you can have the best wide receivers in the world. If you don't have a quarterback that can get them the football, they're no good. And Will Howard came in from the transfer portal this year from Kansas State with not a ton of expectations. I think everyone kind of unanimously thought he was just going to be a facilitator, get the ball to the playmakers. Will Howard has been unbelievable since he got to Columbus. He's protecting the football. He's completing his passes. How much has his buying into the system, buying into the culture, being a true leader of this team while also playing quarterback, how much has that meant to this locker room?
Well, for Will Howard, this is the most talented team that he's ever been on in his life.
Right.
Not in high school, he didn't have much talent. And then at Kansas State talent and Ohio State talent, totally different. So it's been a learning process for him, but he's a little bit more mature, being a senior, he can, help that out. Only piece of the puzzle that's missing for Will Howard is the deep ball.
Right.
And throwing more vertical routes. And he's starting to get into it. If he throws more vertical routes on Saturday, oh my gosh. Because, he just has to get used to throwing those deep balls earlier instead of hanging on to the ball. But he's been a great dealer of the football. Number one, taking care of it. And number two, just putting the ball. Sometimes, he has a tendency to underthrow some balls because of the talent. He doesn't, his arm strength isn't strong. But I'll compare him to Craig Krenzel. I said he doesn't have to be Justin Fields or C.J. Stroud or Dwayne Haskins, Cardale Jones. He doesn't have to, or even J.T. Barrett. Be Craig Krenzel. Just manage the game. Just get the ball in the right guy's hands at the right time, and you're gonna get a whole lot of credit for it for a long, long time. Because
win a national
you
championship.
Craig Krenzel's name, you think of winner. He's a
That's
national
right.
championship winner. So Will Howard can be in that atmosphere by just dealing the ball. You're going to get credit. You're going to be great. But, hey, hand the ball off to Travion and Krishan, just like Krenzel handed the ball to Maurice Claret and got out the way. Same thing can happen. And, I love the way Will Howard is playing. And, he doesn't get rattled. And he knows it's a lot of talent in his quarterback room. So he had to come in there, be ready to play. So it's the most talented team he's ever been on. And I think he's handled it very well. And he's going to make himself some money on Sundays as he continues to do what he's doing this year. Somebody would draft him, in the NFL roster. I'm not saying he's going to be your day one starter in the NFL. But the way he's playing, he's helped himself out immensely, to be a mid to late round draft pick.
Absolutely. Keith, you never lost to Michigan in the shoe. How much added pressure is there on this team to defend that home stadium against the Wolverines?
Oh, I wouldn't say it's added pressure, but it is pressure. And you don't want to see them celebrate on your field and, they running around with the flag and all that stuff they did a couple years ago trying to plant it. You don't want to see that, not in your home stadium. So it is a little bit more pressure, absolutely. But the biggest pressure is just beating them and having that on your checklist, to-do list that I beat Michigan while I was at Ohio State. That's what you want to be. I was fortunate to do it as a freshman, and some of these guys got some freshmen on the opportunity, like Jeremiah Smith. He doesn't know about the last 3 years, so he can start his career off the right way, like I did with a victory, over that team up north.
All right, last thing on the way out. Again, College Football Hall of Famer, Buckeye Hall of Famer Keith Byars hanging out with us here today. Last thing on the way out, Keith, you have rivalries like Duke, North Carolina, Alabama, Auburn. I mean, there's rivalries throughout the entire sports landscape. Why Ohio State, Michigan? They call it the greatest rivalry in all of sports. Why this matchup? Why this rivalry? Why is this the biggest rivalry in all of sports? You've played in it. You know all the history of it. Why is this deemed the biggest rivalry in all of sports?
Well, for a lot of reasons. One of them is it's a long rivalry. There are longer rivalries out there, but it's the best rivalry. And most rivalries are only that week, or that or on game day. The Yankees and Red Sox, they play 12 times a year or something like that. Duke, North Carolina, they play twice a year. Only thing comes close to Ohio State. Army. Auburn, Alabama. Nobody knows. That's a regional rivalry. Nobody knows about that, the Steel Bowl up here in Ohio. But the closest thing that comes to Ohio State in Michigan is Army, Navy. And then that's only for 3 hours on a game day, because it's the military deal. And if you're Army, you're all Army. Navy, you're all Navy. But as soon as the game over, hey, we're one country because we need each other. We need the Army and the Navy, the Air Force, Marines, all that good stuff. But Ohio State, Michigan, it never ends. It's not just Ohio State, Michigan week. I remember one time in maybe about 10 years ago, and it was around the census time, and they was like, well, people from Ohio turned in more census than people from Michigan. I'm like, really? So we went up. I was like, it's everything. It's all little things. When you meet somebody, where you from? I'm from Michigan. Oh, you from Michigan? You don't cheer for that team, do you? So whether you're sports related, so all those things add to the lore of being in Ohio State, Michigan. It's not in between. It's either or. It's either us or them. Can't be both.
All right, Keith Byars, College Football Hall of Famer, Buckeye Hall of Famer, awesome enough to give us some time today. Keith, appreciate you as always. We'll talk soon. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely, my pleasure. You guys have a great day, and go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
All right, good stuff. Again, I appreciate his time. We'll step away for a few moments. We'll bring Elliot and Casey back in, and we'll talk about that rivalry. We'll talk about rivalries in sports in general. More off the bench when we come back. Oh, my bad. We're back. I'm used to hearing the music, and I look up, and Casey's just giving me the finger.
Hard point.
The aggressive hard point. Like,
hard
idiot,
point.
You're on. But
you hit the soft point had already come, and once you miss the soft point, it just turns into a hard point.
Yeah, but got it, Casey. Jeez.
The chat's saying that you're not going to watch the game on Saturday.
Why won't I watch the game on Saturday?
They say you don't watch sports.
I don't watch sports. Why don't I watch sports?
This is a new one.
This is what they're saying.
Is this a new one? I haven't seen this one before.
This is a new one. They're saying you don't watch any sports and that you're not going to watch the game on
I also
Saturday.
read that they're afraid to do mushrooms because they might end up in a field with me somewhere. I don't know what's going on in the chat. I checked out. I don't know why I do this to myself.
No, while we were interviewing the great Keith Byars, I was looking in the chat. It was, do they have some questions they want asked?
No.
Not even anything remotely with what's happening during the show. But we love our chat.
Nope. Yeah.
And
Thank you,
they
chat.
love me.
That's right.
They do love you.
No.
That's right.
We should make Kenner ornaments.
Glass?
Christmas ornaments.
Glass?
Of course.
They'll just buy them.
course.
They'll just buy them in chat room.
Yeah, that way you could just...
I was going to say they won't hang it. They'll just buy them in chat room.
Yeah, that's what I would do. $5 for a Kenner ornament.
Oh, yeah.
It could be, there's like the elf on the shelf. Now there's like
Kenner at the bar.
Kenner shattered on the ground. and you shatter Kenner once a year.
Come
and
on, man.
That really brings in the Christmas spirit.
What is this?
Even Elliot was talking about mushrooms in the chat. I was like, what is happening right now? Like that's
It's tough. It's tough when there's an interview in here and you don't have headphones.
I don't have headphones. I don't know
You can't hear him.
What do you want me to do?
You can't hear him.
Elliot's like, I wonder what it'd be like to do shrooms. Like, I don't really know what's happening right now. But we welcome you back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Appreciate Byers for popping on with us. Now, you're an Ohio State fan. You know the
Absolutely.
significance of the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, but also your ties to Alabama, being a part of the program for those years that you were in college. Auburn, Alabama, talk about that rivalry and how it compares. Obviously, Ohio State-Michigan is bigger, but is that the case? Does Alabama and that area over there, that region, as you heard Keith talk about, do they feel that way?
The Iron Bowl rocks. The Iron Bowl is an incredible experience. There's no professional sports teams in Alabama. The state's split down the middle, Auburn, Alabama. It's a great rivalry. I don't think the Iron Bowl's Alabama's biggest rivalry game. I think that's Tennessee, or at least it has been for the last 5 years. And I would even put Georgia over Auburn when it comes to rivals. I know you don't play in the regular season, but for my 4 years there, we knew we'd play Georgia in the SEC championship damn near every season. So those were certainly the two biggest ones. If I had to put a rivalry up there with Ohio State and Michigan, I would put Alabama and Tennessee the third Saturday in October, smoking the cigars on the field. I think that is an unbelievable rivalry, and those two fan bases absolutely hate each other. Alabama likes winning the Iron Bowl, but it seems like it's kind of a check off the list for them. For Auburn, it's absolutely their Super Bowl. It's incredible. When the Iron Bowl is in Auburn, in the Plains, it's a wonderful experience, and it's great in Alabama as well. But I think Tennessee is the biggest rivalry for Alabama, and since we have that debate, that's just further proof that the game is levels above that. And when I went to Alabama, I expected it to be pretty close. I was born and raised in the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. I was going to games in Columbus when I was barely able to walk and leaving at halftime because I was crying and my dad was upset because we had to leave early. And I love the rivalry. It's my favorite game of the entire year. It's my favorite week of the entire year. And I thought it was going to be the same in Alabama. It's not even close. It's not even close. It's a game with a little bit of higher stakes. The game, the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, that's a lifestyle. You live it every single week of the year, 52 weeks a year. You hate Michigan. And it's not like that anywhere else. It's distantly the best rivalry in sports, not just football.
So here's my pushback. And it is. But my problem with – I have a slight problem with the rivalry. Is because the whole purpose of sports is to win national championships, or to win championships, whether it be the NBA to win the NBA Finals, NFL to win the Super Bowl, baseball World Series, college football national championship. Like that's why you have all the donors at your schools, is to make sure that they're going to give you every resource that they possibly can to help you win a national championship. But Ohio State, Michigan, they tell you it's all about the rivalry game, all about the rivalry game. Now, it used to go hand in hand. You couldn't accomplish winning a national championship unless you won the rivalry game. But that's no longer the case. I remember there's a few years ago when Ohio State lost to Georgia in the college football playoff semifinal. They lose by 1. It was that shootout. It was a fantastic game. I mean, if Ohio State wins, they go on to bludgeon TCU the way that Georgia did. But that was my thinking. It was like, that's why I was so sick after the Georgia loss, because I'm like, watching what Georgia did to TCU, Ohio State would have done that. Ryan Day and the Buckeyes win a national championship. That season ends. Ryan Day does an interview not too long after that into the offseason, and they ask him about both of those losses, and one of the questions was, Ryan Day, which loss hurt more? And he goes, obviously, he still thinks about that Georgia loss, but he's still nauseous and is losing sleep over the loss to Michigan. And that's where I got pissed, because I'm like, stop it with that. That's ridiculous. You are paid to win national championships, and I know the game, the rivalry matters. But let's be clear. Everyone was mad that Ryan Day and Ohio State lost to Michigan that year. But you think we're as mad? You think people care as much if they hoist up a national championship trophy that year? You lost to Georgia by 1. You beat Georgia. You're national champions. You're beating TCU. It's not even up for debate. You're beating TCU. So to sit there and say that, well, it was a tough loss against Georgia, but I'm losing sleep over Michigan, that's ridiculous. You lost to Michigan. You didn't lose anything because you went to the playoff. You had a chance to play Georgia. You beat Georgia, who you lost to by 1. You're in the national championship game, and you win a national championship. This idea that Michigan is bigger than the national championship, that used to be the case because you couldn't accomplish one without the other. Now, even through all the years of Ohio State losing to Michigan, they have not missed the playoffs the last couple of years because they lost to Michigan. They've missed the playoffs the last couple of years because they had multiple losses throughout the regular season. You beat Georgia, you win a national title. That's why I don't like that talk anymore, is because when I think of Alabama, I think of national championships. When I think of Ohio State, I think about Michigan, and that's a problem to me. I'm going to lose that battle. I've fought it for years. I'm not saying the rivalry doesn't matter. Oh my gosh, it absolutely does. It's without 100%, it's the biggest rivalry in sports. But I will never accept a program saying the rivalry means more than winning a national championship. That's my problem with it, because at the end of the day, I've had Jim Tressel on the show and others, and I've said, win a national championship and lose to Michigan in that same season, or beat Michigan and not win a national championship that season. Of course, they call him he's a politician for a reason. I don't even remember what answer he gave me, but he spun me in circles and never really answered it. It drove me nuts. But the easy answer is national championship. National championship, national championship, national championship. And if you're Ryan Day, you win a national championship. If you lose to Michigan on Saturday and win a national championship, all's forgiven. But you can't keep losing to Michigan and not having national championships. The national championship is the most important thing. That's what I want out of my teams. I'm not a Reds fan. I don't care about the World Series. If you could just win the NL Central, that'd be great. I'm a Browns fan. If you could just win the AFC North, I don't care about Super Bowls. That'd be great. Or forget that. As long as you beat the Steelers, who cares? Just beat the Steelers. I don't care what else happens. That's a loser mentality. I don't agree with that in this particular sense.
I think that's what makes the rivalry conversation so cut and dry for me when it comes to the Iron Bowl or the Red River rivalry with Texas and Oklahoma, or any of the great rivalries in sports. Every single one of those teams, you're absolutely right. You think of Alabama, you think of competing for national championships, not the rivalry game. You think of even Oklahoma and Texas, you think of competing for the playoff and not the rivalry game. When you think of Ohio State and you think of Michigan, you think of the rivalry game. And that's what makes it so distantly the best rivalry in sports, is because both of those teams wake up every single day and they don't think about winning a national championship. They don't think about holding the trophy at the end of the year. They think about beating their rival, and that's what makes it so great. And I think that's what makes it the best game of the year in any sport every single year, and that's why it gets the most views. And I think the fact that you can lose that game and still win a national championship is diminishing how much it means, and I don't like that. It makes me really upset to think about that, because you're absolutely right, and I think a lot of fans would be very happy if Ohio State won a national championship while losing to Michigan. I personally would not. If Ohio State won that national championship, beat Georgia and beat TCU, it would have a massive stain on it, and I wouldn't have enjoyed it nearly as much as if they win a national championship beating Michigan. Would I have gotten over it and celebrated a national championship? Absolutely. There's no question about that. But it would forever have an asterisk next to it because you didn't beat Michigan. I've said year after year my entire life, I'd rather go 1-11 than 11-1, and I'd rather beat Michigan and lose the rest of the games. That game means everything. And you heard Ryan Day yesterday. He said, I lost my father, and that's one of the hardest things me and my family have ever had to go through. Right up there with that is losing to Michigan in the last 3 years. This game is everything for the city, for the fans, for the coaches, for the players, and that's what makes it great. It's the best thing in sports, and that's what sets it apart. Does it make sense? No. You should be playing for a national championship every year. That should be the main thing that matters. But once that happens, Ohio State and Michigan becomes the Iron Bowl. It becomes the Red River Shootout. It becomes UNC Duke. Unless it's put on that higher pedestal where it's all that matters, it's just another rivalry. And then why do we even call it the game? Let's think of another name for it, because then it is just another rivalry. And you can get some of those cutesy names with the rivers and everything else. But this is the game. And it's the game because it's the only one that matters during the season. And that's why I'm so confident going into this year, is because we have a quarterback that understands that. Last year, Kyle McCord sat there in media availability for the season, and he said, it's just another game. We win, we win, we go to the playoffs, we play for a national championship. It's just another game. Kyle McCord didn't get it, and that was clear in Ann Arbor when we lost that game. Will Howard, ever since he stepped into this facility, he said only one thing matters, and that's beating Michigan for these seniors that chose to come back and get their first pair of gold pants. He gets it. Right after the Indiana game, he said it's Ohio State-Michigan week, and then immediately stopped himself to apologize to the media because he said Michigan, and he knows you don't say that in Columbus this week. This game is bigger than everything else, and if that stops being the case, it becomes another rivalry, and I think you lose part of what makes it so great.
I think this is the one exception. Kinner's right. Kinner's take is right with 99% of rivalries. I think it's if you win a national championship game, you can overlook the loss to your rival. This is the one where you can't really overlook the loss to your rival. A championship would probably make you feel good. I mean, it would make you. It would probably take away most of the loss of this, or most of the sting of that loss. But this is the one rivalry where, as somebody who has no dog in the fight, this is the one. This is appointment television for me as somebody who hates both of these teams. So I think it's the one game of the year that actually is. The rivalry is more important than the championship.
Mr. Mo makes a good point in the chat, and I don't really know who it backs up here because you're right, national championships should be more important, but I think it just further proves how everyone operates with it. And when you talk about Urban Meyer and his time at Ohio State, I rarely hear national champion. I always hear 7-0 against Michigan. Like, everyone just unanimously puts that above. Even though he did win that national championship, that undefeated record against Michigan is bullet point 1.
7-0.
Right, and then you go to national champion. So, and maybe that's because Ohio State fans and Michigan fans have been brainwashed their whole lives into believing this is the biggest thing in the entire world. And I think that's what makes it great.
See, and I'm a bad person because I hear Ryan Day say that. I lost my dad. That was horrible, and it is.
Oh, no,
But the second worst thing is losing to Michigan. I'm like, really?
Elliot thought the same thing this
morning.
Really? You thought the same thing when I said that this morning.
Yeah. What? Oh, you did too. What?
Yeah.
I did the same thing too.
Yeah.
I think we all did.
It was just kind of like, your life's pretty good then.
I did double down on -20 when he said that.
But that's the thing. Buckeye fans fall for that. Because I read it and I'm like, oh, come on. And then I see Buckeye fans like, oh, that Ryan Day, he's locked in. And I'm like, what? Man. Like, what are we doing? And that's the thing. And here's the Urban's one of those guys, like, I believe it bleeds through Urban. I could feel it. Everything he says is believable. Yeah. Ryan Day, I'm not saying it's not believable, but maybe you need the resume to back it up, I guess.
I'm not going to say I don't believe it because I can't, you see what's happening with.
I also, I don't think he means, physically losing the game. I think a
No,
lot of the
correct.
stuff that has transpired from that has probably been pretty hard to deal with living in Columbus. Like,
Yeah.
Kirk Herbstreit
As
knew
Kirk
that in
Herbstreit,
Columbus
yeah.
when he got death threats.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, that's-
don't underestimate Ohio State fans.
No,
I mean, Joe Klatt all of a sudden was
Yeah.
smooching the behind.
Oh, man, he loves
you
the
hear
Buckeyes
that?
now. Gus had some good calls against Indiana.
Yeah, those are like, well, we better start being nice to our. And we are the TV voice of the Buckeyes. We might as well start being nice to them.
They
Ohio
should just be the
State's been
TV voice of the Buckeyes. I don't call any other games.
Ohio State's been an objectively good program for the past 4 years, 3 years, and there's one knock. There's one knock, and that's that Ryan Day hasn't won. So
Yeah.
Because 85% of his games or whatever, it's a high win percentage.
He hasn't lost to a Big Ten team that's a real Big Ten team other than Michigan, because Oregon's.
Oregon.
When we start counting Oregon,
mean,
Big Ten loss.
Oregon's
What
out
have
of
we
Big-
lost?
Ryan
No,
Day's
it's
a
a
horrible
Big Ten
Pac-12 coach. He's 0-2 with
Right, he's
Pac-12
two.
or whatever he
Yeah,
is.
no, he struggles against Pac-12.
Well, he beat Utah, I guess.
Yeah, he did.
But no, like, and then I'll never say Duke, North Carolina is a bigger rivalry than that, but damn, that's at least when you look at it. And the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry too is like it's a swing rivalry. Like it's a game. Michigan will win. They won 3 straight years. Ohio State won 7 straight years before that.
Ohio
And
State
technically,
won
Ohio State's been
16.
dominating for decades. But it's one of the. I'm looking at this Duke, North Carolina rundown right here. Since 1977, Duke, North Carolina has played 114 times. Duke has won 57 of those. North Carolina has won 57 of those. Duke, of the course of those 114 games, North Carolina has scored 8,900 points. Duke has scored 8,900 points.
Wow.
They've played in a national championship game. Like they're regulars in Final Fours and win national championships. Like that is to me, that is the most complete rivalry in sports. I think that is the most competitive, complete rivalry in sports.
I'm just glad Coach K went out with a win, beating UNC in the last time they played
I
each
know.
other.
He got that to go out like
Yeah,
that.
in the
That's-
Final Four too, to
Yeah.
beat UNC in your last game. That's incredible.
by the way, as we transition into a break here,
Yep.
Mac Brown fired.
Fun note
Ooh,
about Mac
'cause he
Brown
was-
getting fired. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, UNC presented him and said, "Hey, would you, hey old fart, would you be willing to retire mid-season, step down, maybe do a front office kind of role in our college?" Mac said, "I'm going to keep coaching." They said last week, they said, "Hey Mac, you wanna hang him up?" He goes, "I'm going to keep coaching." Today they said, "Hey Mac, you're going to hang him up."
That's cute, sir. You thought this was a real question.
Yeah, they
Like,
said you're going to hang him up.
we gave you a choice to go out with dignity. And yeah, but all right, good stuff. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll be right back. Much better, less aggressive, much less aggressive with the pointing, Casey. I appreciate that. But we welcome you back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wingham and Dayton. We have some super chats that are coming in.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of them, Justin. We'll start with this one. Justin Edgel, $4.99. Can we ask Keith Byars about his cameo in Ace Ventura?
So he gets that a lot. He was not in Ace Ventura.
Okay.
He actually had just signed with the Dolphins, and they said, "Hey, there's a lot of Dolphins players that are being casted for this movie coming out." This was before, what's the comedian's name in Ace Ventura?
Jim Carrey?
Jim
Jim Carrey. This was before Jim Carrey took off. Like Jim Carrey was we know who Jim Carrey is now. This was still early on in his career. KB just signed. For him to be in that movie, he would have had to move to Florida like a month sooner than he was ready for. It was right in the middle of the offseason. So he turned it down. He still kicks himself about that because that movie is actually a very popular movie, and he would have loved to have been in that. But no, he actually was not in that movie.
That's wild. Some more super chats. You ready for these ones, Justin?
No, I thought I was done after Ace Ventura.
Here we go.
What mushrooms are we doing now? What's going on?
I'm gonna have to change the wording on some of these. Sir Boy $1.99. Once again, Kidder makes me want to drink Gatorade. Makes me want to drink Gatorade.
These were flowing in with the Michigan take.
Sir Boy $4.99. This is the dumbest take I've ever heard. Someone cut his mic.
Wanting a team to win a national championship is stupid. You guys can get mad at me for a lot of stupid stuff. You're stupid if you think I'm stupid for saying, hey, I want my team to win a national championship. I don't care about beating Michigan more than winning a national championship. Are you kidding me? They can make fun of me for my height, my weight. I talk weird when I get mad. My hair looks a little goofy. It pokes up in the back. I get all of that stuff. But you will not make fun of me for saying that I want my team to win a national championship. Sue me.
You, Justin Kinner, are a closet Michigan fan. Sir Boy, $1.
That's getting worse.
That's worse.
They're getting worse.
Sir Boy, $1.99 again. He spent like $15.
He spent like $15 on this.
Kinner, you don't get it. That's the problem. And then finally, Mr. Mo, $10 super chat. Let me skim through it, make sure. Okay. Kinner continues to show he doesn't get it. Beating Michigan is goal number 1. Even winning doesn't take away from that sting. What do people talk about first with Urban? His natty? No, they talk about his 7-0 versus Michigan.
That's fantastic. That's super. That's grand. Here's the deal. I do get it, and I'm acknowledging what the situation is. I'm just saying I think it's kind of silly. At the end of the day, it's all about national championships. And if, let me get this straight. Ohio State, and they will beat Michigan on Saturday. They get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, all y'all need is shove it with your fire Ryan Day takes then. You're never allowed to be mad at Ryan Day can lose in a non-conference to some unranked opponent like Notre Dame. All right? They can get their doors blown off by Purdue like Urban Meyer did. They can get blown out by Iowa like Urban Meyer did. They can get shut out in the playoffs 31-0 like Urban Meyer did. None of you can complain. None of you. You're not allowed to complain because those games don't matter. It's all exhibition games from after this Saturday. It's all exhibition games from here on out. That little loser Big Ten championship game. Why even show up? I would opt out if I'm those guys. I'm going to play for.
Can you get the 5th seed if you opt out?
You know, who cares about the 5th seed for some exhibition?
I will say he needs. It's either a Michigan win or a national championship to keep his job. Like if he beats Michigan, he's not getting fired. If he loses, he has to win a national championship. I think.
I agree.
Okay.
If he loses, though. But according to these guys, no. Winning a national championship is for losers.
Oh, no. If he loses and wins a national championship, I still want him fired.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, no, I'm with them. I'm with them. I think this is worse than your draft take. I think this is the worst take you've had, yeah. I hate this. I don't
think this take's that bad.
It's like my blood is like boiling under my skin.
I think this is.
I know. I'm sorry. I've been trying to stop.
Elliot, did you see my eyes?
I did.
Help me.
No,
I'm not.
This take.
Because I get it. I understand what he's saying. I just disagree.
If UC loses to Xavier for the 400th time in a row this year, but makes a Final Four, I'm vindicated. I don't care anymore. I mean, I care, but I don't. I mean, we have bigger things.
Right.
We have bigger fish to fry. This is the one example in sports where there is probably not bigger fish to fry. The championship's certainly bigger than Michigan.
I'll admit that it doesn't make sense.
But that's what people care about. That's why it's consistently the most viewed football game of the year outside of the Super Bowl. It's consistently that. People like to see this rivalry because they actually hate each other. That's the fun of it. That's again, you're not wrong.
He's not wrong. That's the thing, is he's not wrong. It makes sense. And for every other rivalry in every sport in the world, he's 100% right. I just disagree with this.
Sir Boy, another $1.99. Kinner is from Ann Arbor.
We're rich
We're
today.
making money.
Yeah.
Where you guys want to go for lunch today?
Yeah. Sir Boy also says Kinner is a wish.com Connor Stallions.
What would that even mean? Whose signs is he stealing?
I don't know. Maybe he's stealing the takes from.
They should build a statue, honestly.
Max
and
Kellerman.
I'm the biggest Stallions hater ever.
Yeah.
They should build a statue for him outside
the biggest FU that Michigan can do is making him.
They got him Bryce Underwood and a national championship.
Yeah, they did.
What if
I think
they make
Portnoy
him
should get one.
Did you see? No, the woman who slept with the rich guy that paid for Bryce Underwood should get it.
Oh.
Not his wife, and he has no connections to Michigan, and she went to Michigan, and he paid for Bryce Underwood.
I see. Interesting.
She's a genius.
Not Dave Portnoy?
Not Dave
Portnoy is part of the conglomerate that filled like the leftover money.
Another super chat. Mark Fetters, $5. Kinner, did you grow up in Ohio or did you just move here?
I moved here. I've told you guys that.
He grew up in New Mexico?
In El Paso, Texas. But I'm a diehard Buckeye fan. I don't need to be questioned about my fandom for Ohio State. I'm acknowledging how important the rivalry is. I will never put a single regular season game over winning a national championship. I just can't. But I know. I'm acknowledging that that's how it is. I'm just saying I disagree with it. It's not that I don't get it. Y'all are ridiculous. Oh, he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand it. Like, it's so difficult to understand. I get it. I understand it. I just disagree with it.
I'm starting to wonder if you might not get it.
That wraps it up for us. This has been Off the Bench on the radio side, 1410 ESPN Radio. So what are we up to money-wise? What did we just earn today?
We got to check, guys.
I mean,
Let me
that's
check.
adding up.
Let me check.
This is the Chatterbox Sports NIL fund right over here.
So 5, 7, 17, 19, 24,
Jesus.
26, 20, 30, 31. You made $31 because of your take, Skinner. How about that?
That's good. Keep it up.
Nice.
That's how you do it.
That's exactly how you do it. But I'm pulling for Ohio State to win on Saturday.
Are you?
But I am going to root like hell for them to lose after that.
Okay,
I am going to be the biggest
that's actually fair.
I'm going to be the biggest Oregon fan, whoever they play in the first round, just so I could say, who cares? Don't get mad about
That's fair.
officiating. Don't get mad about Ryan Day or Chip Kelly's play calling. Don't get mad at Jim Knowles' defense in the playoffs. Don't get mad at any of that stuff because who cares? The season ended when Ohio State beat Michigan, which is technically coming up this Saturday.
I
but, you know.
always root for my takes as well, so I can't blame him for that one. I mean,
That's right.
You're in the same boat. We can't blame him for that one. But I will say, and maybe I'll reassess after we take care of Michigan and we're actually there on that week. I am very much rooting for Oregon in that game. I think
For the seeding?
with the
I
way
want that 5 spot.
everything's shaken out so far, a 2-loss Ohio State losing to Oregon twice is the 5th seed.
Yeah.
Because the only other team that could be ahead of them would be a Georgia or a Texas, in my opinion. And one of those two would win the championship, and the other one would be ranked behind them.
Yeah.
So Ohio State would be the 5th seed if you lose to Oregon. I also think they'd be the 5th seed if they lost to Michigan.
Yeah.
And didn't play unless like Indiana or Penn State won the Big Ten. But I don't know how beneficial it is for Ohio State to win that Big Ten championship. And then we can do the whole bye versus 5th seed debate. But I think this is a bigger problem that we're looking at with the college football playoff right now and something that they're going to assess next offseason. We've already seen that the byes are probably going to go away, committed to the 4 conference champions, just because no one can watch college football this year and say Boise State deserves a bye over an Ohio State or an Oregon. That's just crazy.
Get the auto bid. That's fine. Do your
Exactly.
thing.
No,
Yeah.
give them a shot in the playoff, absolutely. And then after that, they're on their own. I don't think the byes are worth it anymore. But yeah, I think we've seen that be a problem, and I think we're going to see a resituation or a reshuffling of where the seeds are. Because I don't think you can have a playoff system where being a 1 seed is so clearly a disadvantage.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense to me. You can't have that be the prize, playing the winner of the 8-9 instead of the 12 and the worst conference champion. You're playing an SEC school or Notre Dame probably, like instead of BYU and Boise State. I don't get how they're going to operate with this system without some kind of drastic changes, and the only changes we keep hearing is that they're going to expand it. And me watching this season, the one change I would say that we definitely don't need is more teams getting a shot, because I don't think there's 12 teams in the country that deserve a shot.
This is why they should have gone 4 to 8.
Yeah.
4 to 8.
And take away the people. Put it back in the BCS system with 8. And then you're good.
See, agree. Yes, that's a solution that I wouldn't argue against. But I do like the banter and the anger and the frustration and the back and forth. I do think that matters. Jason Fitz, he comes on our show regularly. He used to, when he was at ESPN, he would do the mock trials for that. Like they would be given former fields and have to put it together based on the resumes and all this stuff. And they at that time said that they loved the 14 playoff format because of the drama and because of all the talking points that come with it. You know, they don't want a perfect solution. A perfect solution is boring. Like when the NFL, like we're looking at the playoff field right now for the NFL, we're not saying the Bengals should definitely begin. Look at that offense. Look how good they've looked off. It's just as simple as, well, you got to win. You win. You know, it's kind of dull. It's kind of boring. You're following along. Don't get me wrong, but this adds a little flair to it. By the way, college sports. If you had someone that never followed sports in their life and you had explained to them how college football works, they would look at you like you're ridiculous.
Yeah.
Football is not fair. College athletics is not fair. There is not one solution to a fair way to crown a champion in college football, basketball, or any NCAA level sport. There just isn't. So when everyone talks about fair with these playoffs, I'm like, but none of it's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all ridiculous. It's all subjective. It's a human element involved with how they put this all together. Even the BCS, they did a thing where people got mad at the human element being involved, but if you use the BCS model to form the 14 playoff for the first like 6 or 7 years, it was identical. So even the human element still got down to the final result, the same result that would have come from the BCS model. But at least there would be less, SEC bias, there would be less that talk if they went that route.
No, I understand why people are mad about the SEC bias and all that stuff when you talk about, a 3-loss team making it over a 2-loss team or even a 1-loss team in some situations. And they have every right to be upset about it. But I think it is important when teams are playing on such drastically different playing fields that you do have to look at everything, including strength of schedule and strength of record and all that stuff. You can't just look at the raw win-loss, and otherwise you're not getting the 12 teams that are most deserving of playing for a national championship. You're getting the 12 teams that won the easiest games, and that's certainly not what this system was meant to be. It's meant to be the 12 best teams in college football, not the 12 best records, and hopefully the committee does that tonight. It's going to be a very, very interesting night. I think we're going to find out exactly tonight whether or not a 3-loss SEC team has a chance to make the playoff. I would expect Alabama to come in at either the 12 or 13 slot and be right on the bubble, if not in the playoff, and certainly have a chance depending on how this conference championship week and in week 12 shakes out. Certainly need help, certainly need some upsets. But I would expect Alabama to sneak into this playoff, at least looking at it right now, because if you ask me to list 12 teams that are good enough to play for a national championship, I can really only get to 11.
Real quick, 2 more super chats.
Nice. Keep it coming.
Oh, Jesus.
2 more super chats. Everett Henry, $2. He says, hold on, let me scroll down here. Hold on, everybody calm down. Maybe Kinner would get it if he watched the games.
Oh, man. So you were too cheap with only a $2 donation and a bad comment. I mean, man.
Justin Edgel.
Spend more or have a better comment.
Justin Edgel, $2 super chat. Byars was the dude that Ace chloroformed.
Byars wasn't in it.
So there goes that. $2
No, and I'm not trying to be that, because I thought he was too. When I first met Keith, I asked him about that. He goes, he gets that all the time. He was not in the movie. He wasn't even in Florida when it was shot.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But now everyone has me questioning this because now I gotta look it up.
I'm trying to figure it out.
Okay, because now I'm like, because if not, I'm gonna tell KB. I'm gonna text him and get him back on the show.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I just.
No, I don't. It's not in his credits.
I looked it up and
on IMDb. It's not in his credits. I think you're good, Kenner.
Aha. But I'm not going to do the ha thing. Everyone thinks that, though. KB, he gets that all the time. But I'm trying to figure out who they think is him, though. Because I never really asked them. Like, they always think that, but like.
Well, I Googled it, and then the AI thing on Google says, yes, Keith Byars appeared in Ace Ventura. But there had to be something. I mean,
like, this is like guys were on this team, like Troy Vincent, both Keith Byars, they were all in Ace Ventura. Like, I'm reading this article that says that, but like when you look at the credits of the movie,
yeah, he's not credited in the film, and it's not on his Wikipedia page or anything.
Interesting.
But oh well.
Crazy.
Oh well. But keep them coming.
Now they're mad at you. Now they're saying don't anybody send any super chats anymore.
Oh well.
Okay.
Now they're very upset.
Now we don't have to read mean things on it.
Yeah,
they were mean.
Now we'll just do it for free.
Now we'll just do them for free. Yeah.
He wasn't. Justin says he wasn't credited. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I think this is a true 50-50 here.
I feel like we should have asked him.
Because how could we know?
But there's no way of knowing. So
he says he's not in it, but Justin knows that he was.
Yeah. Oh, he's calling him right now.
Hey, KB.
Yes, sir.
Hey, you're live on air right now, just because you have to help us settle a debate. Were you in Ace Ventura?
No.
Okay, that's all I needed. Why?
The guys from Dayton know who I think I am.
Oh, so there's people that are in this chat telling me I'm wrong, saying that you were in it. They even bring up the scene about it, and I was like, well, I'm just going to call because I swear you've told me it wasn't you before.
Marco Coleman. That's who it is.
All right, that's all we needed. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.
What a guy. What a great guy.
There it is, Justin Edgel.
Well, there you go.
Proven wrong on air.
Not Keith Byars. Marco Coleman is who it was.
I guess he's from Dayton.
Marco Coleman. He is from Dayton.
But now I want to see the scene. But anyways, yeah, Marco Coleman, Ace Ventura, either way. What else we got? What else we got for today as we wrap
What
this
time
up?
do basketball games start today?
This is the most short week of shows we've maybe ever pulled out.
Yeah, I think so.
It was a good, serious Keith Byars interview to salvage it.
Yeah.
But yesterday and today we are short weeking it up here.
Well, it's a celebration week, is what.
That's
we're
right.
doing.
We're thankful.
That's right. We're thankful. Let's see what time games start today. They've already started. What?
They started at noon yesterday.
I missed the 24-hour marathon that used to kick off or tip off college basketball season. The Maui used to be a lot earlier in the season too. The Maui used to be what would tip off college basketball. There was I love the Maui. I mean, it always hits. There's always great games no matter what. But the field's always good. But yeah, what time does Xavier play? I think Xavier and Cincinnati both play on Wednesday or tomorrow.
UC plays tomorrow.
And I think
I don't know
Xavier
about
plays tomorrow too.
Xavier. Almost certainly Xavier would play.
Xavier plays Michigan
tomorrow.
If I'm not
They play
mistaken.
Michigan tomorrow at 8:30 on FS1.
We got bangers tonight.
What's tonight?
Alabama, Houston, and something else.
You're big on basketball for Alabama, right?
Yeah. I'm a pretty big Bama hoops fan.
Anything else? That's it. No.
There's two good games tonight, two ranked games tonight.
UConn plays who? Colorado.
Yeah, I think so. Oh,
Auburn, North Carolina.
yeah, Auburn, North Carolina.
11 p.m. tip.
Auburn, North Carolina, Kansas, Duke, Alabama, Houston.
Oh boy.
Unbelievable triple header. That's 7:30, 9, and 11:30.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Casey, how you doing?
Doing all right. Doing okay.
Just want to make sure.
I'm here.
You sure are. No one can argue with that.
No one can.
Do you before we get out of here, Elliot? Do you have a pick for the people making billionaires?
Sure, I'll give a pick out for.
Well, hold on. No, I got you. You're gonna take one of these two teams plus 10.5 because they're both playing right now. Duquesne plus 10, or Duquesne, Old Dominion, or Chicago State, Drexel. Drexel and Duquesne are the favorites.
I will take Drexel.
Drexel minus 10.5 in
because
Chicago State.
I think
They're
Chicago.
only up 5.
I think Chicago State is the worst program.
Okay.
Ever, right?
Minus 10. That's plus money. Up 5 with 11:40 to go in the second half.
Okay. That's listen. Chicago State's 0-7. I'm pretty sure they've never won a game.
Ever?
Ever in the
Wow.
history of their program. I think.
Fun
they're that
fact:
bad.
this past weekend,
they're that bad.
or 2 weekends ago, when Kentucky played at Texas A&M, that's the
Yeah.
furthest west Kentucky football's ever traveled.
Really?
Yeah, ever. History of the program. They've been around for a while.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
But all right.
We good?
I think
I
so.
think that's it.
Start late, end early.
That's right.
That's right.
Tis the season, baby.
That's the way.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for us. When's no Chatterbox Bengals this week?
Chatterbox Bengals tonight.
Tonight.
Chatterbox Bengals tonight.
See what I did there?
6p to 7p. Greg and I are gonna preview this weekend's matchup with the Steelers, and then there will be no Chatterbox Bengals on Thursday night because of Thanksgiving. So tonight will be the only Chatterbox Bengals fill until the game kicks off on Sunday.
We will have a show tomorrow, Justin. Yes, we will have a show tomorrow.
Will I be here? Ooh.
Ooh.
I gotta go eat some cookies, dude.
That's right.
So that wraps it up for us. Thank you, everybody. Till tomorrow. Off the bench.
Love you all.
Presented by United Dairy Farmers.